All right, Club World Cup Group B. We've got PSG of France, Atletico Madrid of Spain, Botafogo of Brazil, and Seattle Sounders of the United States. And I'm sure Sounders fans will have been very excited about getting to participate in the Club World Cup. They probably got the toughest possible draw, though. They have the defending champions of Europe and South America in the group, as well as Atletico Madrid, who are notoriously hard to break down and only lost to Real Madrid in the Champions League on a very controversial penalty. So, whilst I'm sure Lumen Field is going to be rocking for all three home games for the Sounders, it's not going to be pretty, I don't think, for them. Again, I'd love to see an American team do well. Just it's not looking good for the Sounders really. Maybe against a different team, the home advantage could have played a pretty big deal, but against the PSG and Atletico Madrid as well as the Libertadores winners, like it's not going to be pretty, I doubt, for the Sounders. But for the most part, they'd probably just be happy they're in the tournament. Their fans, I don't think Sounders fans are really expecting that they're going to win a ton of games or have a legitimate shot at winning the entire tournament. But it's still cool that they're in it. They actually have produced some controversy around this. All three of the MLS clubs have ended up having quite a bit of controversy around them. Inter Miami and LAFC for the fact that they were selected for the Club World Cup. The Sounders, their place in the World Cup was never in doubt, but they recently came out with a protest against the amount of payment they're going to receive, the players, that is, from playing in these games, because the agreement with the Players Association and MLS is that players can't get more than $1 million for the World Cup, and that's $1 million to be shared between every player on the squad. So that is a lot of money still. At the same time, when the club is making almost 10 million from being in the tournament and the players only get 1 million of that, I can understand why there's frustration. It's easy to say that players should, shut up with their big salaries because most of them are like 1 million split between 20 some players is still more than just about anyone makes in a year. But at the same time, there is legitimate reason to think that football players are actually still being exploited by owners. They're kind of getting cut out even with their high wages. They're not getting paid really as much as perhaps they deserve with how much of a part they play in the competition. So I'm not really sure entirely what I think about this because I can understand being upset with the players who are still getting paid a whole load of money for being in the tournament, and at the same time they are still being exploited, you could argue, as well. So a bit of a mixed bag with that one. Either way, the owner of the Sounders apparently got really upset and shouted at the players after the game. And also, FIFA's probably not going to be excited about that. That's just another controversy to add on to this. Speaking of controversial statements with the group, PSG's owner, Khalifi, recently stated that the increased workload in games is fine because NBA players play a game every 2 days, which kind of misses the differences between basketball and football. Like in America, MLB, NHL, NBA, they all have massive league seasons. I think MLB is 162 games and NBA and NHL are both 82 games. But the difference between ice hockey and basketball and football are pretty big. You have less of a playing field to cover, you're playing for a shorter game time, and also players can come in and out of the game with benches. Like, people will come on the bench and then go back onto the field and then go in and out of that. So it's not really the same thing, and that's a fairly and it's completely financially motivated from Al Khalifi, and he kind of stated as such. He said that this was like a big commercial opportunity and exposing the PSG as a brand, which I probably don't need that much more brand exposure anyways. But to compare football and basketball, they are two different sports. The basketball allows you to be able to play more games in a week. And even in American sports, this is acknowledged because the NFL only plays one game a week. So I just find that to be a really dumb statement from Al Khalifi that completely misunderstands how basketball is different to football and how players are able to play more games in a shorter period of time. But speaking of PSG, they're probably going to be the favorites for the whole tournament now after pretty much just like rushing through everyone in Europe and dominating to a massive degree. That 5-0 Champions League final win is going to go down in memory for a long time. There has never been a win quite so dominant, and wins like that just don't tend to happen. As I said in my Champions League final review video, like this, it's just like almost unprecedented, the dominance PSG showed in that game and the dominance they showed in the Champions League as a whole. So the sky's the limit for PSG right now, and the Club World Cup, I'm sure they're definitely going to have a very good shot at winning it and are probably favorites for the whole tournament right now. Atletico Madrid are, as I said before, very hard to break down. They were a bit off the pace in La Liga. They finished third, but they were 12 points behind Barcelona in first. So it's not like the absolute greatest Atletico Madrid's ever been. You know, it's not like the team that reached 2 UCL finals in 3 years. Still, any Atletico team managed by Diego Simeone is going to be hard to beat. I don't doubt that. I think PSG could actually have quite some frustration in the Rose Bowl against Atletico Madrid. Like, I wouldn't actually be surprised if Madrid kind of like forced PSG into a draw. And those two teams probably are the favorites as Europeans. I would say Botafogo have a pretty good chance as the Libertadores champions, but I'm less sure now because they've had their manager as well as a few big players leave since they won that Libertadores. For instance, Thiago Almada went to Lyon because don't we just love multi-club ownership? So with a new manager and some of the players that were really important in that Brasileiro and Libertadores championship have already moved on. So, like, I talked about Palmeiras, how they made their squad better. They made big signings, probably with the Club World Cup in mind. It feels like the opposites happened with Botafogo. And so I don't like their chances now as much as I would have right after they'd won the Libertadores in November. That then leaves us with the Sounders, who do get 3 home games. But again, they're 6th in the Western Conference. They've been one of the most consistent teams in MLS over the last 10 years. I don't know. It's not going to be easy for the Sounders team that isn't quite as good as the team that won the Champions Cup in 2022. And that is kind of the downfall of a tournament that rewards performances over the last 4 years. Because, you know, the Sounders, when they got to compete in the Club World Cup right after they had won MLS, like, then they had a pretty good team still and probably the best team in North America. That's not really the case anymore. They don't even have the best team in the Western Conference of MLS. So whilst they're going to have a really great time, I'm sure, I don't think they have a chance in this group and might not even get any points. I want to see American teams do well. It's just I don't know if they're going to. I do think that Atletico Madrid and PSG will be the ones who go through. Botafogo, I'd have more hope with them if they hadn't had quite a few players as well as their manager leave after the Libertadores triumph. But maybe they'll do better than I'm giving them credit for. They still are a pretty solid team. They're 6th in the Brasileiro right now. So they could do well. I just don't like their chances as much anymore. One more thing I'll mention is that this is a group taking place in the west of the United States, whilst almost the entire rest of the tournament is in the east. So this games being played here are going to be like 2,000 miles away from where all of the rest of the action is taking place, which is going to be difficult come the knockout stage when 2 teams progress from this group, because they're going to be traveling from Seattle and LA to Philadelphia and Atlanta, which is a pretty big journey and something that will give the teams they're playing who have had to travel shorter distances somewhat of an advantage. It's also going to mean that they're traveling multiple time zones because whilst the rest of the tournament's going to be taking place on Eastern and Central time zones, the games out on the West Coast will be taking place on Pacific time, which is a whole 3 hours different from Eastern time. That might take a toll on the players. That might put them at a disadvantage come the knockout stage. I kind of understand why they had the Rose Bowl and Lumen Field chosen if the Sounders as a West Coast team are in the tournament. Still, though, that's quite the disadvantage, and that could play a big role come the knockout stage.